but our refunds, such as it could be with my family, are decreasing. And I've heard stories of people who've gotten refunds before are now suddenly having to owe thousands of dollars in taxes. And I read somewhere where I think student loan deductions got away. Like,
So, let me talk on taxes first, then student loan and the center as well. On the tax bill, I opposed the tax bill for the exact reasons you talked about. It did not, I think we need tax reform. I'm proud to be working now on the Ways and Means Committee where that will ultimately happen. But the principles of taxation in this country, it should be fair. You talk about income inequality. Those who have more should carry more of the burden. It should be, it should not add to our debt. We've already put on your generation $22 trillion of debt, and that's growing. We need to be more responsible. It should grow our economy, and it shouldn't be built or presented with accounting gimmicks. And the 2017 bill violated all four of those principles. In particular, it penalized states like Illinois with the caps on the state and local tax deduction, so there's double taxation on states like ours. I hope we can fix and repeal that, and I signed on to legislation that would do that just this past week. It puts a burden on working families while giving extraordinary tax cuts to the wealthiest and to the corporations, further and more than they even were asking for. So it was bad policy. As far as it goes to deceived, I don't think so. They were pretty open, and I'm saying this somewhat tongue-in-cheek. They told us exactly what they were doing, right? And they promised it would be good for everyone, but there was always that wink, and that's what we were saying. This is not the tax reform that we need, and it still is not the tax reform that we need. We need tax reform that's going to make it easier for working families, for someone starting a career, and this will be my transition to the student loan, to build that career and have the middle-class life that we all aspire to, which is a home, a family, health care, education for our kids, and the ability to have and prepare for a secure and dignified retirement after we finish our working careers. That's what all of us are aspiring to, and everyone should have the opportunity to achieve. So that's a key thing. And education, obviously, is an important part of that. Senator Durbin talked about manufacturing. We have so many manufacturing jobs out there that are going unfilled. There are a lot of opportunities for people to go and work in an apprenticeship, a lot of paths to get to those skills. It doesn't necessarily have to be a university degree, but for many people it is. And for many people and their families, that degree is getting increasingly out of reach. Right? They look at the cost of that, they're graduating. I had students in my office each of the past 3 weeks talking about that same issue. Some were med students, some were undergraduate students, some were people aspiring to go off to college. I believe we need to get to a place where someone who wants to go get that university degree, a 4-year college degree, if they're willing to work part-time, and by part-time I mean no more than 10 hours a week during the school year over the summers, they get financial aid, scholarships, and hopefully they don't have to take debt, but if they do take debt, they take a debt no more than what they can afford to pay off in 10 years so they can start their life. That's the structure we have to get back to. But you touched on it. Today, student loan debt exceeds credit card debt. And there was a recent story of these private schools, and I'll let the senator talk about, where they're sucking students in, loading them up with debt, and there was a major collapse just this week of a private college that these students were really bad. We have to stop those abuses. So there's a number of pieces trying to bring the cost of college down. We have to work with states and give them the ability to invest more in education so that less burden's falling onto tuition, the students bearing tuition. And we've got to work on making debt easier to pay back by going into fields in communities that have great needs. So, broad answer.
Let me add, over pancakes, where I met you this morning, Julian, over pancakes I sat next to the superintendent of the Zion Benton School. Her name, Chris Clare, and this gentleman here who is in charge of community health care clinics in the area. And an interesting thing they told me, they said, we can't find enough teachers. We don't have enough teachers for our high school. We have 3 vacancies now and we can't fill them. We need more teachers. And I talked to this gentleman here about the situation at the clinics. They need more psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers to deal with addiction and that sort of. There's a clear need here. Go back to the lady before with the veteran husband. We have a need for caregivers at almost every stage in life. Daycare. Ask a working mom and dad what their first concern is. Who's going to take care of our kids during the course of the day? Now go to the disability community and ask them what kind of personal help do they have. They usually don't need it around the clock, but to get dressed and get ready and go to work and be there when they come home in the evening. Now, the veterans that we talked about, and then talk about the obvious thing, the aging of America. More and more of us are going to see parents and grandparents who are going to need help not just for 10 years, but for 20 years and more. Where are all these caregivers coming from? Where are the people to work in the clinic coming from? Where are the teachers coming from? And it comes down to your question. We need to create financial incentives for you to consider those three opportunities in your life. Loan forgiveness for you if you will come and teach at a public high school. Loan forgiveness if you're willing to come work after you have a degree in one of the medical professions in one of our clinics in the community. Those are the things that make us a richer country, don't they? So that we help families that are trying to work to become part of the American dream. So most of your money, and you don't have them yet, someday you might, most of the money you owe in student loan you owe to the federal government. It's time for the federal government to stand up and help you and the next generation. Last point I'll make. For-profit universities are overwhelmingly phony. Overwhelmingly phony. And let me tell you why. I'll give you two numbers. This can be on the final. You might want to write this down. The two numbers. 9% of students graduating from high school go to for-profit colleges and universities. 9%. 34% of all the student loan defaults are students from for-profit colleges and universities. 9 and 34. Why? Because they charge so darn much. The students get burdened in debt and drop out, or if they finish, they end up with a worthless diploma. There's 600 Argosy University students now holding the bag because this operation went out of business after taking millions of dollars in subsidies from the federal government. It's an outrage that we let this happen and young people fall into this trap. So we need to do a better job regulating out in Washington when it comes to the kind of school that you might sign up for.
I promise I'll come back to you.
Congressman, one more.
Okay, and you get the last question.
Okay, well, I'm with Stop ETO in Lake County, ETO being ethylene oxide gas that is leaking into Lake County by two companies, Medline and Vantage Chemicals in Gurnee. Now, this chemical was being emitted by Sterigenics also, and Sterigenics was recently shut down by the EPA for emitting levels but remaining within the permitted levels. Recently, thank you very much, Senator Durbin, thank you very much, Congressman
Brad.
Schneider, Brad, but we also have Congresswoman Underwood, Joyce Mason, we have Galowski joining us. Everybody is joining us and saying we need new regulation, we need more legislation, because these permitted levels are not taking into consideration our communities. And they are causing extreme levels of cancer, they're causing chronic irritations like skin, headaches, stomach aches, and other gastrointestinal issues, many diseases. So all of these people are championing us, and we're so thrilled, and we want to say thank you so much that you guys are out there and you're listening to us. Who is not? Who is giving us the obstacle? Where are we, who are we fighting at this point? If we have all of these amazing representatives, thank you, fighting for us, where is the obstacle?
Thank you. Before I answer the question, because you pointed out that we've been joined by a couple more elected officials. Our state rep, Joyce Mason, stand up. Stand up again. He wants to take a picture, that's all. And Sheriff John Eidelberg was here. Did he leave? We lost the sheriff, but our new Lake County Sheriff, John Eidelberg, was here. I just want to recognize them. This issue, as we talked about last week, came to the news in November. I have been proud. Oh, Sheriff is here. Welcome. So,
Go ahead.
thank you. So, as you came to the news in November, the background of the story is in that December 2016, the EPA moved ethylene oxide from a possible carcinogen to a known carcinogen. They have not updated their regulations, so there's been no greater leader on this than Senator Durbin. He's joined with me, with Senator Duckworth, with my colleagues, Congressman Foster, Lipinski, and Caston. We've sent letters, we've done legislation, introduced legislation, saying that when there is a change like this, you can't wait 2.5 years. We need an immediate update of the regulations. Calling for ambient air monitoring, so we can get the data. And I don't have anything new from last week, but where things stand right now is, as of a week ago Friday, the Illinois EPA said they would not, I guess I do have a little bit of information, would not do ambient air testing. The communities of Park City, Gurnee, and Waukegan are discussing funding it for themselves. As I said last week, I can't explain why the IEPA refused. The first place to be able to make a decision is to get the information you need to make that decision. First question I always ask myself in anything I look at is, what do you have to learn to know what you have to do? Ambient air testing is both of those pieces, and we should have that, and we'll keep pushing. I can't tell you, IEPA has been a block. We've had meetings in your office with Andrew Wheeler, and now he's been sworn in. He is officially the EPA administrator, and we're going to keep pushing until we can get that information.
The only thing I will add is that the decision that was made in Willowbrook by the Illinois EPA to close them down was a state decision, now being challenged in court. I had asked the US EPA to get on the scene. The readings that are coming off the monitors are dramatic, 350 times higher than the safe level.
In Willowbrook.
In Willowbrook. And they were telling me it would be months before they could get someone out to take a look at it. That is unacceptable. A lot of people, and you'll hear it in political speeches, say, too much government regulation. When it comes to a deadly carcinogenic gas, for goodness sakes, individuals can't protect themselves. We need to have a government with scientists and engineers who can back it up with data, doing their job to protect us. And we ought to look ahead. If this ethylene oxide turns out to be a danger in Willowbrook, we ought to look to where it's being used in other places, like Lake County. And I'm glad you're doing that.
Especially since Willowbrook was within their permitted levels. But their readings, as of right now, all of the information that's being put out was up to 136,000 times higher than it was safe for the community. Safety-wise, they didn't take that into consideration.
Right.
So legally, they were within their permitted levels, and so legally, Medline and Vantage Chemicals are within their permitted levels, but the community has not been taken into
But
consideration.
that's why the legislation says when you have a new EPA assessment, as we saw in 2016, we're now 2 years, 4 months past
So
that,
what you're
that's
saying
just not
is
acceptable.
Illinois EPA and the EPA are the biggest
Well, here's what it boils
obstacles
down
at
to.
this point.
The companies are going to fight us in court no matter what.
Obviously.
Okay. The second thing is the US EPA needs to develop a standard when it comes to the use of ethylene oxide as a sterilization tool, an agent. And we've been pushing it. Senator Duckworth and Congressman Schneider have been pushing it. Do it, and they're dragging their feet, as I said. Months from now, we may get to it. In addition to that, the Illinois EPA, from what I didn't know what you just said, is not monitoring the Lake County sites.
Okay, so a week ago Friday, they said, we're not going to do that.
Now, Willowbrook decided as a town to monitor as well.
And so that's what we've been doing. We've been going to city councils, and we've been talking to the mayors, and we've been pushing
You're doing the right thing.
from a residential standpoint, from the community standpoint, but there's only so much we can do. And as of last city council, Mayor Cunningham did step up, and he said that they are going to start looking into, within the next 90 days, they're going to start looking into independent air testing. I want to know what's holding up the legislation. I know that you didn't have any more recent information. I've been following you
It's
very closely.
EPA rulemaking.
But it's EPA and Illinois EPA that are going to be
US.
our biggest obstacles.
US.
So thank you.
I just wanted to add a couple of things, and thank you so much for all you're doing. You know, I have 2 kids, I'm a mom, I live in Gurnee too, so this is terrifying to me, and it is a top priority for me. One of the things, I did see that article that came out in the Tribune, and I wanted to clarify something because I jumped right on it when I saw it. The no that came from the Illinois EPA was in direct response to a question asked by Mayor Kovarik of Gurnee in terms of she wanted to pay the Illinois EPA to do the testing, you know, as on a contract basis. And the no was, no, that's not how it works. So that's not completely off the table yet, and we're continuing to push them to do the testing. But I think it's really important to know, because in that newspaper article, you know, she came out and said, oh, they said, no, they're not gonna do the testing. But that wasn't exactly the conversation that happened. It was like, no, that's not how we do it. So there are other ways of getting them to test.
How do you suppose she's putting out this information?
I can't speak to that. But the other thing, is that Senator Melinda Bush and I did a joint resolution, and mine is still on its way to the House, to ask the federal EPA to come and do testing too. But we're continuing to work, and thank you both for everything.
And the only thing I guess I would add to that, it still doesn't, we need to have this ASAP. We are past the hour, so I apologize, and unfortunately we have to go to another event, another meeting. But again, thank you. We will continue to have these Congress on Your Corners throughout the year. Please continue to come and
Sorry, I wasn't walking away from you. I just wanted to mention.
Ms. Mason?
You can shoot that picture to me right away. Well, I think we're moved, Gibby. But I'll share it with you. Yeah, we're going to improve Hello, ma'am. How you doing?
My name is Nancy.
Well, thank you, Nancy.
Please reach out to me.
We do on my website, we identify the arrests that we've done in the county and the different type of arrests and the bonds and stuff like that. And we also do posting out
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.